Welcome to the Hockey Podcast. I am Luke Lipinski.
And I am Doug Cannon.
On this week's show, we rekindle the Crosby-Ovechkin rivalry, look at the latest in NHL reality TV, and update the Calder race.
Which means, THP fans, we have lots of hockey-mentries to watch before we have lots of outdoor games to watch. 6, in fact. All starting with the Winter Classic on January 1st.
All that and more, let's drop the puck on episode 25. Episode 25, Luke Lipinski here alongside Doug Cannon. Best number 25 in NHL history?
Best number 25. See, I knew you were coming at me with this,
and
so I'm ready.
Answer? Oh, you do?
Oh, yeah, I'm ready for you this time,
I'll
buddy.
throw mine at you first.
Okay, go.
Joe Nieuwendyk.
Dave Andrechek.
That's not even how you say his name.
Dave Andrechek.
I'm going with, yeah, that's pretty close, actually. Fine, fair enough. Next week. I'm going to throw you a curveball. I just don't know what I'm going to do yet.
But Nieuwendyk's definitely
He's good. They're both good. Number 25. So this is the silver anniversary.
Is that what it is?
I don't know. Did you get
Golden's 50, right?
Did you get me anything?
No. Did you get me anything?
Well, no. I got you this lizard that's standing next to us.
He's having a good time.
We're recording the show next to a lizard who's getting an advanced copy of the show, and he has not moved in about 3 weeks. Outdoor games coming up, beginning with the Winter Classic. I saw the trailer for 24/7.
And?
Yesterday. It's 30 seconds. There's no speaking. There's no players. There's no footage from the show because they haven't shot it yet. It's just different angles of the big house in Michigan with ice CGI'd over it, and I'm all in.
I'm all in.
Amazing.
I'm really, really all in.
December 14th, it begins.
24/7.
It's
4 episodes of pure enjoyment.
It is a bigger deal to me than the actual game. Does that mean there's something wrong with me?
No, because it's a ritual in this house.
Yeah.
I mean, it is truly a ritual that come December. In fact, my oldest the other day was frantically going through the guide on the television. I go, "What are you doing?" He says, "I'm looking for 24/7." I said, "Dude, it's only November."
Yeah.
He goes, "What do you mean?" I said, "It doesn't start till December 14th." And he goes, "Come on." He goes, You're not real." And I said, "No, I'm real. It's 4 episodes."
You're definitely real. You're here. I can hear you.
December 14th. So he was totally bummed out. He was like, he thought it started 2 weeks ago.
If they did that show all year, if they just did 24/7 and just, I don't know how they would do it logistically. I mean, I guess they would have to follow one team for a couple weeks and then go follow another team. But if they just did 24/7 of the NHL season, what hockey person doesn't watch that whole show? What sports fan doesn't watch that show all year?
Absolutely. I mean, you know who does a really good job on a smaller scale?
No.
Is the Oilers.
Yeah, they do that oil change show.
Oil change, and now Montreal's doing it.
The thing about the Oilers show, though, is that was essentially put in place to kind of document their rise from the bottom of the standings with all these picks and everything. And they really haven't changed. So it really should just be called Oil. Because, I mean, last time I checked, they're still at the bottom of the standings. I love how you randomly found a can of Coke to be drinking right when I said that. You haven't drank anything all day. So anyway, 24/7 is coming up. Winter Classic, December 14th from the Big
Toronto
House.
versus Detroit.
Yeah, so you care about the game. I don't necessarily care who wins that game. I mean, I guess because you're a Maple Leafs fan, I'm kind of pulling for Detroit. But other than that...
Well, I'm a Maple Leafs fan, and the great thing about the Winter Classic is it counts.
And it's classic.
It's not just an exhibition game. It counts in the standings. So, yeah, we can get all caught up in the pomp and circumstance and stuff, but it's a legitimate game. It counts in the standings.
Well, and it should be noted here that, 2 weeks ago, when we talked about the biggest characters that were going to be on the Winter Classic, and now other people are doing that in bigger forums, so it's getting more pub.
I think other people are listening to us, is what I think.
The far-reaching tentacles.
It's just too coincidental that a lot of the topics on this show are reaching bigger venues.
Well, we're groundbreakers. I mean, we're podcast pioneers. That's a given.
Yeah, that's us.
It's not just the Winter Classic this year, though.
Yeah, we've got a total of 6 this year.
Yeah, so five other games in what is being called the Stadium Series, and I'll run through them real quick. No?
Only 4 in the Stadium Series.
Oh, I'm sorry. 4 in the Stadium Series, and then the Heritage Classic.
Correct.
All right. Anaheim at L.A., January 25th, from Dodger Stadium. Rangers, Devils from Yankee Stadium the next day, January 26th. January 29th, another game at Yankee Stadium, Rangers, Islanders.
Okay, put the brakes on. Right there. Stop.
All right.
How come the Rangers get 2?
Look, I don't know. I don't have an answer for you.
I have a problem with that.
Well, throw down. I don't know. Go to the proper authorities.
I think I'm going to have to take a trip to New York and sit down with Gary Bettman and say, dude, I know your office is in New York and you live in New York, but really? We got to have two Rangers have to play twice?
Tell me how that goes for you. Pittsburgh, Chicago, Soldier Field on March 1st, and then the Heritage Classic, Vancouver and Ottawa, March 2nd. And I will refrain from making any jokes about the fine hockey community in Vancouver. I will simply say that should be a fun game for all.
It'll be a great game.
Unless you own a car.
So let's back it up.
And you don't want it overturned.
Stadium Series has Anaheim and LA at Dodger Stadium, January 25th. You know what the average high in LA is in January?
It's warm.
It's 65 degrees.
That's the boldest of all these games. To try and pull that off, that's pretty ambitious.
It drops below 57 degrees once every 10 days.
Well, hopefully one of those 10 days is January 25th, 2014.
I'm like, this could be a disaster.
I'm sensing some skepticism on your part.
I will be amazed if they can keep that ice legit.
Well, the one thing is it is a night game. It'll start at 6:30 LA time. I don't know if that's going to help or not, but I hear what you're saying.
The daily low is 49.
This could
That's 17 degrees above freezing.
This could turn into pro beach hockey really quickly.
I want to see what kind of technology that the league comes up with to keep that ice. Now, in all fairness, it's been done because I saw the game in Las Vegas.
Yeah, but
between the Rangers and the Kings.
That wasn't great ice surface, though.
That was horrible ice.
Although that was also in the summer, and it was 20 years ago, right?
Right.
So, and that game didn't matter. This one does. In fact, not only does this game matter, if you start to look at that, that's two of the best teams in hockey. So that game really matters.
That game really matters because, yes, two of the best teams in hockey, but it's just before the Olympic break.
Yeah.
Where a lot of teams are trying to make sure that they're in good standings before that 3-week break before we come back and finish the season.
Well, and it's in that Western Conference where everybody is bunched up by within 2 or 3 points. So You're talking two division rivals. I mean, that's a game that not just matters because it is a meaningful one of the 82 games, but it actually is huge. Right now, LA 33 points, Anaheim 37 points. And again, how many teams? We should probably do this again. 8 teams in the Western Conference would be first in the Eastern Conference.
That's amazing.
It's not going to change.
I saw that. I looked at that yesterday, and I was like, you got to be kidding me.
It's unreal. But those are two of the teams, and they play each other.
Yet the Rangers get 2 games.
Rangers Devils, that game I would only watch if it was outdoors.
It's why I have this little burr underneath me about the East Coast. They're like, oh, we're the East Coast. Of course we get 2. We're New York. We should have 4.
Yeah. Well, so what was your question before the show? Which one of these games I want to see the most?
Okay, before we sat down, well, before that, we talked about 24/7 in the Winter Classic, but we didn't touch on the NBC/CBC series. I think NBC is producing it. The CBC is going to air it in Canada. NBC is going to air it in the States. It's a 7-part series leading up to each of the Stadium Series games.
Yeah, it's called NHL Revealed, a season like no other.
Okay, so now I have a problem with just the title.
You have a problem with everything today. You and your grumpy lizard.
NHL Revealed. Is it behind a closed door that we've never seen this league before?
Yeah. Well, and then the season like no other is it's going to be interesting if there are just as many games next year, which I think there will be. I think they're going to pull this off, and I think it's going to go well, and I think they're going to do it again next year. And then next year it's going to have to be called NHL Revealed, a season just like last year. And that's horrible marketing. However, title aside, I'm watching every episode of the show.
So am I.
January 22nd, it begins on NBC Sports. And if I understand it right, it does lead up to the Stadium Series games, but also the Winter Olympics, too.
Right.
So, and the Heritage Classic. Sorry, I got to keep keeping that one separate. It has nothing to do with the Winter Classic because that'll already be over.
The final Stadium Series is after the Olympics.
Yeah.
And then the Heritage, of course, is after the Olympics. I'm a big documentary fan. If there's a favorite genre of mine, it's the documentary because my roots are in film, and that's what I studied way back when.
Really?
Yep.
Huh. Learn something new every day.
So the genre of the documentary is, I did my thesis on it, but that's where I'm at.
You wrote a thesis?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Wasn't a good one. I got a B, but
Well, you wrote it.
I wrote
It
it.
was above average.
But yeah, no. All those types of shows, that's what reality TV should be. Right. Not a bunch of hillbillies drinking and jumping off the roof of their house.
You just described a show that intrigues me. I don't know what it is, but I
think
kind of
it's
want to
called
watch
Moonshiners.
Oh.
But anyways.
Oh, geez. That is a real show. You're right. Well, the documentary is, I don't know. I've never totally gotten into them, but when it comes to documentaries, patent pending.
Ooh, patent pending, yes.
Trademarked. It's going to show up on some major website in 2 weeks. I can't get enough of those. And if I understand this right, it's going to follow 12 players. Is that what I've heard?
I think so. I forget the details.
Some of the names that are being tossed around, Henrik Lundqvist. I'm assuming that's for the ladies
Why?
out there. For the ladies out there.
Yeah, well, it's not for my fantasy team because he's on it.
Patrick Kane, he's a great backup, though. Sidney Crosby, John Tavares, and 8 other players. So there you go.
8 other players?
Yeah.
Interesting name.
Well,
and I'm sure number 8 will be because he's not in one of the stadium series. But anyways.
Yeah, well, they should follow him, though, because if they're really doing this for the Winter Olympics, to me, he's the biggest story of the Winter Olympics.
He's the biggest story of the Winter Olympics. But before we end the segment, the 2 games out of all the outdoor series that intrigue you the most?
Well, let's take the Winter Classic out of it for a second.
Well, no, because that's one of mine.
I know, that's why we should do it. Okay, that can be one of yours. Anaheim, LA at Dodger Stadium. That intrigues me because I want to see if they can pull it off. And also, of all the games, that's probably the one with the 2 best teams. No, actually, that's not true. The other one, Pittsburgh, Chicago, intrigues me because it's the only one that
because it has Pittsburgh.
Could be a preview of the Stanley Cup. Could be.
My 2 were the Toronto at the Big House and the Pittsburgh Chicago.
Oh,
game.
See?
No,
look at that.
Because it's at Soldier Field. I mean, have you ever been to Soldier Field?
No.
I mean, it's such iconic place right there on the edge of the lake.
Yeah.
In the wintertime.
And I like how they haven't sold the naming rights, or maybe they have. Maybe it's like
Quest
presents Soldier
Field. It's Coors Light.
Oh, that's fine.
It's the Coors Light Stadium Series is what is the official title.
No, I mean Soldier Field hasn't sold their naming rights.
No, it's Soldier Field, and it's been that way for years. But the part I love is it's going to be March, very cold, and we're going to see those people all bundled up in the stadium, and the lake is right there at the one end of the stadium. I'm like, yeah, that's the one I want to watch.
Yeah, that's going to be a good one. And it's the only one I think that has an East team versus a Western team, correct? Vancouver, Ottawa, too. That's the Heritage Classic. That's the one I'm the least interested in.
Why is that?
I don't know. I just am.
Yeah, that one doesn't – I don't know why they picked Ottawa.
Well, I say least interested.
Because it's East-West. I can see what they've done. They've got a team from Ontario and a team from the West Coast, but –
I'm going to watch the whole game, though.
So I'm going to watch it, too.
Least interested is a very relative term. And those are 2 good teams. Ottawa is actually very quietly turning into a pretty good team over in the Eastern Conference. And my last point on this, the 24/7 and the NHL Revealed is exactly what the NHL needs to do. It's, whether you like the title or whatever, it's brilliant because the biggest problem I think the NHL has as far as reaching a broader sports audience, and the NHL is doing fine, so they're really not having a problem here. But if they want to convert football, NBA fans, whatever, they need to have their players be known by fans. Like, you need to know individual players. You need to be able to follow those guys.
Well, that's what those 2 series do, and I like that. My initial take on having 6 outdoor games was it's really just kind of watering down the special event feel of the Winter Classic. But if you take a non-hockey fan and you're trying to drag them into your sport, you're going to need special events. You're going to need a special reason to tune in as a non-hockey fan. You and I we've just right through this segment said, well, I'm not interested in this game, but I'm going to watch it.
Oh, yeah.
Well, the non-hockey fan's not going to do that. But if you make it a spectacular event, a spectacle is the word I was looking for. If you make it a spectacle, then people are going to tune in. And you are going to get some of those fringe sports fans that go, hey, this is pretty cool.
And I think what's key for them is knowing who John Tavares is. And so if you watch that show leading up to it and then you're like, oh, I like this guy's story or whatever, I want to see him play. Because I think that's the biggest hurdle that the NHL has is that your typical sports fan, we'll talk about hurdle later, doesn't necessarily know the backstory of some of these guys like they do. I mean, everybody knows the backstory of the NFL players and NBA players, and so even if you don't care about the game, you still watch them because you kind of feel like you know them.
Right.
Whereas hockey is doing a good job of bridging that gap in the last couple of years.
Yeah, and I think they could take a step better. They got the NHL Network now. I think throughout a regular season that they could do like little mini documentaries on key players.
Patent pending.
Right.
Yeah.
You're listening to the Hockey Podcast. Feel free to email comments or questions to the show at our email address, thehockeypodcast@gmail.com.
All right, Doug, if I were to ask you who the best player in the sport of hockey in the world is, what's your answer?
The world?
No, Iowa. Who's the best player in Iowa? Let's start small and work bigger.
Well, Iowa would have to be John Jingleheimer Schmidt. He's the top pond hockey guy going in Iowa.
I question his very existence based on that name.
Okay. That's a tough question because I struggle with these types of debates to begin with. But clearly the top two hockey players right now have got to be Alex Ovechkin and Sidney Crosby.
So let me stop you there. 5 years ago, the two best players were Sidney Crosby and Alex Ovechkin, and it was very divided. You had people on Team Ovechkin, you had people on Team Crosby. They met in the playoffs. It looked like the Capitals were going to win that series. The Penguins came back, won it, ultimately won the Stanley Cup. And from there, Crosby has since won a gold medal. When he's been healthy, he's been the most prolific point producer. And Ovechkin, for a couple years there, it seemed like he kind of leveled off, was still great, was still one of the best 3 or 4 or 5 best players in the league, but it wasn't 1A and 1B. Now we might be getting back to 1A and 1B.
Well, I think what happened is that Ovechkin closed the gap. And it started with last season in the condensed season. When he had a new coach in Adam Oates. Coach was moving him around. He was on the opposite wing. And it didn't look like Alex responded well to those changes. Coach, new system, et cetera, et cetera. And then when it seemed like he was, as a player, accepting the changes and accepting what the coach was trying to tell him to do as an individual, as part of the team scheme. Ooh, the team scheme,
nice.
Nice.
This is a very poetic podcast today.
But then the afterburners kicked in, and he's been on a tear since.
Well, the raw talent is those are
That's
clearly
a good
the two
way
best
to
players.
describe him.
He's, a good way to. I wish I knew who said this. I think it was Bill Simmons, who used to write for ESPN, or maybe he still does. He wasn't talking about hockey, but he was talking about a good way to gauge a player is if you're watching your team and they're playing against that team, how scared are you when they have the ball or the puck or whatever? And if you're watching your team play against the Capitals in a meaningful game and Alex Ovechkin touches the puck, you don't feel good because he's going to score.
Right.
He's 43 goals in his last 45 regular season games, a stat that is horribly understated. I feel like I'm the only person saying it. 43 in his last 45. Like, remember how big of a deal it was when Gretzky scored 50 in 50 games to start that season?
That was huge. I remember exactly where I was when he scored the 50th.
Hopefully you weren't in net for the other team.
No, I was not in net.
But he was the third person to ever do that, right? And we're talking about Wayne Gretzky in an era when, first of all, it's Wayne Gretzky, but second of all, goalie pads are smaller, defense was different. Ovechkin, I know he hasn't done it in one season, 43 goals in his last 45 games.
Right. In one of those games, where did he get shut down?
Phoenix, we saw it in person.
We saw it in person, right? But back to your point, when we're watching that game, we're like, Eight's got the puck.
No, yeah. But so was Phoenix, and they figured out how to stop him.
Well, Phoenix shut him down. I mean, they just did a great job of shutting him down.
Well, they have a good defenseman that was able to do some stuff. But either way, it's a big deal when he doesn't score a goal. It's a big deal when everybody else does score a goal.
Well, you and I last night were talking about the Washington-Toronto game, and it went into a shootout. And I said, they only scored one goal. I guess they shut down Ovechkin. And go, no, he's the one that scored.
Yeah, and it was unassisted. He just did it all himself.
Did it by himself.
It's unreal what he's been able to do. And so now you look at their stats. Ovechkin has 20 goals, 7 assists. He's number 2 in the NHL in total points, number 1 in goals. Sidney Crosby's number 1 in points, 30 points. And I think, I don't know, I just think they're close. I think if I'm picking a team, I'm taking Crosby still number 1 because he makes the guys around him better, and it's just so consistent. He just doesn't mess up.
Okay, so who's number 2?
Ovechkin.
What about Stamkos?
Stamkos is 3. But a year ago, I would have said Stamkos was 2.
Because, I mean, he's out hurt right now. He's going to be out for a while. But in the first 17 games of the season, he had 14 goals and 9 assists.
Yeah, but even when he's healthy, if Ovechkin's playing like this, I still have Ovechkin. Because if you would ask me 6 months ago, I would have had Ovechkin number 2 as well. But he's just cementing it. And he's making a push for number 1. The thing is, Ovechkin's a good power forward because he'll hit, he'll be physical, he'll score goals. He just scores goals at a ridiculous rate. Crosby, if you watch him, he doesn't do anything wrong, with the exception of that series against the Bruins last year in the Eastern Conference Finals where nobody scored. He's producing a point every night at least, and usually 2 or 3 or 4.
Well, what about the knock against Sydney being soft? I mean, we hear it all the time.
I don't see it. I mean, he gets hit, he gets back up. He doesn't hit. I mean, he's not like Ovechkin. He doesn't go out and hit people.
Right.
But these guys are a whole new generation of player because Crosby, for even having that reputation, goes right to the net and takes hits and fights for the puck in the corners, whereas in the past, your premier goal scorers and point producers didn't necessarily do that.
Right. Well, and then, I bring up Stamkos because he's a lot like Crosby, where his goals and assist ratio is a lot tighter. So Stamkos clearly makes his team better. Sidney clearly makes his team better. Does Ovi make his team better? Yeah, he puts a lot of goals in so that they can win, but is he making players around him better?
Well, and I think that's the test. It's going to be the playoffs and the Olympics this year. This is a big year for him because as good as you are, we've seen this in the playoffs before, and the Capitals get there, either teams put 3 or 4 guys on Ovechkin and just say everybody else can beat us, and they can't. Or Ovechkin gets his goal or 2 every game, and they lose 4-2 every game. There's only so much you can do as one player. Now, in Ovechkin's defense, Crosby has more talent around him than Ovechkin does.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. But no, I'm just going to throw a monkey wrench in this whole conversation. My biggest problem with all of this
is there's no defenseman?
No, yeah, we're not talking defense. Is the fact that everybody is kind of doing the whole Ovechkin-Crosby comparison, and we've jumped on the bandwagon as well. And one of the reasons I wanted to talk about it today is the fact that in the first segment we talked about what the NHL was doing right and about getting players out there and doing everything right to bring in those non-fans. I think this comparison of, well, why is he better or why is he better? Why can't we just look at 2 great players and actually talk about the positives that they have instead of comparing them to see who's better over the other one? Because the media is always trying to spark some kind of controversy or do a compare and contrast between player A and player B. Oh, this guy's better because he's got a cup and an Olympic medal, but Crosby's a hell of a player.
But that's sports, though, and that's just the way it's going to be.
Yeah, but I'm talking about
different
hockey.
Players. They're different players, though. That's the thing. They're very different. But, I mean, look, NFL does this with Manning and Brady. The NBA does it with Kobe and LeBron. I mean, that's just going to happen. Baseball.
Wow, you mentioned the NBA.
Baseball doesn't do it because I don't know who the 2 players are. But I really should stop ripping baseball. I don't hate it nearly as much as it sounds like. But
no, I just think sometimes it's better to take a positive road than always pitting one guy against the other.
Well, I'll go back to the conversation we had a couple weeks ago of what makes a good rivalry. Pittsburgh and Washington is a good rivalry.
It's a good rivalry.
And it's not because of a dirty hit, which is what kind of sparked our whole debate. I don't even remember where I heard it, but somebody said you have to have a dirty hit to really touch off a rivalry and get that hit
No, you just got 2 skilled players, and which skilled player is going to score that extra goal?
If you're asking me who the best goal scorer in the world is, it's Ovechkin.
It's Ovi.
And Stamkos is too. I mean, Crosby. The thing is, though, when Crosby, if he has to score the goals, he scores the goals. Yeah.
He'll find a way.
And that talent around him, I mean, he made Pascal Dupuis and Chris Kunitz really good. And they're not bad, but, I don't know. It's going to be a big year for Ovechkin because he's got these Olympics and he's got a decent hockey team this year.
Yeah, it's almost like the spark he found last year and then the whole Olympics thing and his drive to represent his country is like driving him. I mean, literally just it's fueling him this season.
Let me ask you this.
There's a grin on your face. This is not going to be good.
It's not about Toronto.
Okay.
Which one matters more to Ovechkin? Gold medal or a Stanley Cup?
Gold medal.
Really? No hesitation.
I think the pride is driving him.
I agree. So what happens if he wins a gold medal this year? Does he trail off in the second half of the NHL season?
No, I think that will actually even spark him. If he's able to get that medal, because I'm just guessing. I don't know. I shouldn't use that. I feel that that's his drive, is that he wants that.
At home in Russia.
At home in Russia. And he's proven that when he's motivated, he's pretty hard to stop.
Borderline impossible to stop.
Right? So how can you not come back and just, ride that pride? Well, there we go again.
Everything you say rhymes. It's like I'm doing a podcast with Eminem.
He just rides it, and he takes it into the second half. Because you remember, when they come back, you've only got a game in February. You got like March, April, and April's only half a month. I mean, there's not a whole lot of hockey left once they come back.
So what happens if he doesn't win a gold medal? Like, what if Russia goes out there and does what they did last time, and they didn't even medal last time, correct?
Correct.
So, I mean, that's got to be such a letdown for somebody like him. Because I agree, the gold medal, I think, is really what drives him. And that's not to say he doesn't want to win a Stanley Cup. I think if you're Alex Ovechkin and you're looking back at this year in hockey in July, as long as you won one of those two things, you'll be happy.
Okay, let's
good chance he doesn't win either.
Let's just take that, and we've talked about it it seems like almost every show. You start with your goaltender and you move your way forward, right?
Yeah.
Who's Russia's goalie going to be?
I would guess Sergei Bobrovsky.
Or?
Probably Bobrovsky. I guess it could be Varlamov.
Or Varlamov.
Former Capitals goalie.
So, I mean, you've got two solid netminders.
Yeah. No, they have a good team.
They have a good team. They have a really good team. They have a really good shot. So, I don't know. If they don't win the medal, I don't think his drive to win the cup is any less. I don't think he's going to hang his head and not score any more goals.
Well, I don't think he's not going to score any more goals, but if he scores one every other game, that's going to be a disappointment at this point.
But I think, though, if he wins a gold medal, if Russia wins a gold medal, you better be ready, because he's going to come back.
This could be the year of Ovechkin. He just goes off and takes the Capitals deep and takes Russia deep. And if either of those clubs goes deep, it's because of number 8.
I was going to say I disagree. I said I don't disagree.
Oh, the old double negative.
That's right.
I like it. You're tuned into the Hockey Podcast. Follow us on Twitter @HockeyPodcast for even more hockey news.
#DoIt.
Final segment, news and notes. We will start begrudgingly.
Where?
In Philadelphia.
Oh, yeah. Time to eat a tiny bit of crow.
Well, no.
Just a tiny bit.
Well, only in that we promised we weren't going to talk about Philadelphia as much.
Right.
But it's
you got to give them credit here.
They're 7-2-1 in their last 10. Now, I think everybody knew this team would eventually turn it around, but they've really turned it around. Like, they weren't going to be the worst team in the Eastern Conference all year. There's no way. They have too much talent on that team.
Yes.
I guess you don't ever know anything for certain when you have a new coach come in 3 games into the season. But when you have Claude Giroux and Wayne Simmons and Braden Shen's playing good hockey and they're getting good goaltending, you figured they would at least turn it around. They're now, right as we speak, at 500. The only reason
I got to stop you and correct you.
Story to me. Yeah, go ahead.
They're 7-1-2 in their last 10.
Oh, whatever, you're right. That's true though. That's another point.
That's big.
Yeah, the one regulation loss, the 3-0 loss at home to New Jersey. So
ouch.
Take that for what it's worth. Yeah, 7-1-2 in their last 10. Now, the problem I have with this is 11 games ago is when Ray Emery attacked Braden Holtby on the ice. And so if you do the Ray Emery math, it seems like Philadelphia rallied around that just debacle on the ice.
Tongue-in-cheek, which is why you need fighting in hockey. It's Spurs.
Yeah, it'd be great. There was no fighting there. Now, that's actually a good point. I will try to give Philadelphia credit and say they rallied around Wayne Simmons touching off some fights when they were down 7-0, and maybe they hit rock bottom and they had a players-only meeting, and it was the legitimate fights going on up the ice and not our goalie assaulted somebody on the ice. Let's rally around him. That was good, because if that's the case, I hope they lose their next 60 games.
Right, but I don't think so.
But either way, playing good hockey, beating some decent teams. I know the pessimists out there will say they're playing teams from the Eastern Conference, and that is true.
But here, let's go back to the whole melee. Okay, and you pinned it on Ray Emery.
Well, that's because his was the only part of it I didn't like.
But I think the positive out of the melee is that the wheels fell off the bus. It doesn't matter how you look at it. That game was ugly all the way around. The wheels fell off the bus. They got together. They had a players' meeting and said, look, put yourself inside the room with the team. And, again, we're not privy to it, but I bet you these players all got in the room and said, look, we got to fix this.
Well, it's embarrassing at that point.
Right.
You're a professional hockey player. You are a team that on paper should be, I don't know, certainly a top half of the league team.
If you're my teammate and you're my goalie and you did what Ray Emery did, I'm probably not going to throw you under the bus.
No, you can't.
I'm going to rally behind you because you're my teammate, because that's what teammates do. I mean, if you hurt the guy, that might be a different story. But, I mean, he just did a goofy thing.
Either way, publicly, you have to support him.
Support him, right? So, but behind a closed door, I'm sure there were a lot of tough conversations in that meeting. And now they've got a positive going.
Well, I think at that point, you hit that sort of mentality where you look around. That was a home game. They lost 7-0 to Washington. You're 3-9. You're a team that shouldn't be 3-9 based on your roster. And so I think at that point, it's very conceivable the first dozen or so games, they were like, oh, yeah, this will turn around. Oh, yeah, we'll get it turned around. And then all of a sudden they got so embarrassed that they were like, we have to basically start over here 12 games into the season. And they have. And they're right back in it, especially in the Eastern Conference. They are very much in the thick of things. And, Claude Giroux's scoring now. He's got 3 goals this year, which is better than 0.
Well, and you're right. I mean, we make all the jokes we want. I mean, the West is tight. The West is scoring. There's a lot of points in the West. But Philadelphia does have the fact that the East is lagging a little behind the West, and the fact that they could probably, if they put a few win streaks together, they can probably get back into it.
Yeah, and to that point, you look at their schedule coming up this week. They have Florida, and then Tampa, and then Winnipeg. Winnipeg, obviously a Western Conference team, but 3 very winnable games to keep things going.
Yeah, especially the Florida-Tampa games.
Which I guess transitions into what's going on with Tampa very quickly. Philadelphia, 1 point out of 4th in the Metro. So they could get back in this.
And they only have to be in the top 3.
Yeah, and they're 2 points out of 3rd.
So
they are right back in it.
They are right back in it.
Tampa Bay, who's on that schedule, 29 points on the year, 14-8-1, but kind of doing what we expected without Steven Stamkos.
Yeah, they've gone since he got hurt on November 11th. The team has gone 2-4, and they've literally gone 2-4. He went out hurt. They lost 2. They won 2, and they've lost 4 consecutive games since then.
Yeah, and more concerning, the scoring. They got shut out by Boston the day he got hurt.
Right.
They beat Montreal 2-1 in the shootout, so really only scored 1 goal. Very nice game against Anaheim. They win 5-1, but then they lose 6-3, lose 5-2, lose 5-1, and then they just lost again 1-0 in overtime.
Say that again. 6-3.
Okay. 5-2, 5-1, 1-0. So
that's 17 goals against in 4 games.
That's quick math, and it's right. But equally concerning, that's 6 goals for in 4 games for a team that relied on their offense.
Right.
So, we talked about this literally hours after it happened and Stamkos got hurt. It's kind of a shame because Tampa's not going to win without him. They're just not.
It doesn't appear to be the way. So what does Tampa have to do? They got to find somebody. I really think they got to make a move so that the season doesn't just unravel on them.
Yeah, because it could very well get away from them. I don't know. I mean, if
he's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks, that's a long time.
Longer than that, right?
Well,
we're talking months, I thought.
I'm just going broken bone in my head.
Okay.
Any broken bone, let's say 6 to 8 weeks. So that's 2 months.
Well, if he's going to be back this season, then yeah, it's worth making a move, I think.
Well, I think if you're going to lose a guy of that caliber for 2 months and you're losing at the rate they're losing right now, and if that just kind of projects over those 2 months, you're out of it.
Yeah, and that's a team that hasn't had a lot of success in recent years, so it was nice to see them get off to that 14 or they were 12-4 going into that Boston game. So they were off to a very nice start. They were even 14-5 a couple days after that. But
their general manager is not a quitter, so
no.
I mean, Yzerman's going to do something.
Yeah,
I think.
One thing to note to kind of stave off some of the panic. Their 4 losses that they've just had were in Phoenix, in LA, in San Jose, in Anaheim. So
all Western Conference teams that are playing really, really well right now.
And all on the road and all within a week.
Right.
And right after you lose Stamkos. So they haven't really had any time to adjust.
Yeah, I think of a guy of that caliber, you got to bring in somebody or something.
Well,
do something.
but it's easier said than done in the NHL today.
True.
Pavel Datsyuk, not playing, feeling fuzzy, never good.
Feeling fuzzy. Well, that's what happens when you get a elbow to the jaw.
Yeah, Jared Cowan of the Ottawa Senators delivered it. I've seen it. I've watched it from every angle, although apparently the only camera in the arena was from 700 yards away. So every angle from 700 yards away only does so much. You hate to see that. I mean, this is what we've talked about. You have to take the headshots out, otherwise you lose a guy like Pavel Datsyuk.
But there was no penalty on the play.
No.
So
it wasn't the worst.
It might get reviewed, and there might be a suspension, but
it wasn't the worst hit I've ever seen. But at the same time, and Jared Cowan is huge, so his elbow up is at head level for everybody else. I don't know. The game is better when Pavel Datsuk's
it happened
playing.
to Martin Hansel of the Coyotes the other day.
Yeah, if you're big,
he's 6'5". Everybody's short.
Chara, yeah, exactly. When Chara hits anybody, he's hitting them high. He can't help it.
Right.
So I've never seen Pavel Datsyuk get hit before. So that in itself was like the footage is grainy. It almost looks like it's doctored. But
well, he tweeted Datsyuk afterwards tweeted out that he's okay and he hopes to be back soon.
Yeah.
So it doesn't sound like it's too serious, but he's a key to that team.
Can we just have a season where Datsyuk, Stamkos, Crosby, Ovechkin, maybe even Tavares play the whole year healthy?
That'd be nice.
Just
to see our key players play an 82-game schedule.
It would be fine. I'd be fine with that.
Is Marty McSorley coming out of retirement?
No, he's not. Sorry.
Because until you go back to that
era,
the star players are going to get hurt because back then, I mean, even now it's kind of, you don't go after the top guy, but there's nobody to stop you.
Well, going back to Ovechkin, you would think of all of them, he'd be the one most likely to get hurt.
But he plays a physical game.
Yeah, so you'd think he would get hurt, but he's the aggressor all the time.
Football analogy.
All right.
If I practice all week in shorts and shoulder pads, and then Sunday comes along and I play in full gear, what's going to happen?
You're probably going to get hurt.
I'm probably going to get hurt. Ovechkin, his style of play is a physical play. He's used to being physical. He's used to getting hit. He's used to giving hits. Sidney, Stamkos, some of the finesse players, they're not used to that because they don't play that way.
Yeah, Ovechkin's the hammer and not the nail.
Right.
And certainly not Nail Yakupov.
I was told by an ex-NFL player, it was Dougie Plank, former Chicago Bear, it is always best to be the hitter and not the hittee.
That's very succinct, and it's very true. If you're the one initiating the contact, it doesn't mean you're never going to get hurt, but you're a lot less likely to be the one getting hurt.
Right.
Part of the reason Pavel Datsyuk could be feeling fuzzy is the fact that Detroit's playing Buffalo on Sunday, and the Sabres are debuting their new mustard-colored jerseys.
Oh, yeah. Can you imagine John Scott coming down on you in that new jersey?
It's just a wall of yellow.
It's the Nashville Predators North jersey.
Yeah, it's I don't know. It's not my favorite jersey.
It's a lot of yellow. That's all I gotta say.
It's a lot of yellow, and then there's some gray mixed in, and yellow and gray just make me think like construction zone. That's about it. It's not a horrible jersey. I mean, look, I will give them this. It still has the Sabres logo on it.
Well, that's a good thing.
It does say Buffalo above the Sabres logo, as if I don't know what that logo means.
What they've done is they brought back that old retro logo, the cross sabers with the buffalo.
Yeah, which they should. That's the logo they should always use. It's a great logo.
It's an awesome logo. I've always liked the logo. I'm not digging the yellow.
No, maybe they should trade these jerseys for.
And it's funny
Matt
too
Wilson.
because it's all yellow on the front, and then the shoulder inlay is a navy blue, and then that navy blue runs down the back.
People are so mean because I saw the comments when these jerseys first came out. Whatever, they were revealed by Steve Ott back in September. And one of the first comments I remember seeing was, "The Sabres look like they're ready to win a roller hockey championship."
That's what it looks like.
It does.
That's an excellent comment.
So there you go. Last one.
Okay.
I feel like we should quickly update the Calder race since we're pretty much exactly a quarter of the way through the season.
25 quarter. Yeah. Oh, it's magical.
It's
magic.
It's meant to be.
It's meant to be.
I don't know what it is, but whatever it is, it's meant to be. Tomas Hertl
Hurdle.
leading the way in total points among all rookies. Jaromir Jagr actually earlier this week said he sees similarities between himself at that age and Tomas Hertl, which is
Wow.
so it's pretty nice.
That's a nice
comparison.
compliment.
He also said he may have to deliver his first hit of the season on Tomas Hertl when they play. But
The only compliment Jagr ever gave me was, "Who are you again?"
that's a compliment.
That's a compliment.
18 points for Hertl, 12 goals, 6 assists, leads the way. As we saw last year, leading the way in rookie scoring means absolutely nothing if you're Neil Yakupov.
Neil Yakupov, yeah.
But Hertl's he's big. He's got that flashy goal.
He had that 4-goal game.
Yeah, and he's on a good team. Sean Monahan. How about Torrey Krug?
To me right now, I mean, Sean Monahan's the man.
Well, Monahan
Look at the team he's on.
Yeah, I mean, he's the surprise out of all these guys because I think everybody knew Hertl would make the Sharks. This was his second year since he'd been drafted. But Monahan was supposed to spend this year in juniors.
Right.
And
you can't put him. He's 8 goals and 6 assists. He's got 14 points, and he's on Calgary.
yeah,
I mean, he's doing it all right. And then, I got Nathan McKinnon. He's no slouch, man. And then here's the thing I like about him. He's a rookie playing in the NHL.
I know what you're going to say.
What am I going to say?
You're going to say you like the fact that he has 10 assists already.
Absolutely.
He's deferring to his
He's
teammates.
making his team better, and he's a rookie.
Well, last year they had one of the worst records in hockey, and this year they're right near the top of the Western Conference. So it's not all him, but he's a major reason why.
Right, and then over in Edmonton, you got Arcobello doing the same thing.
Yeah, it's and we passed up Torrey Krug from Boston, who we all learned his name last year in the playoffs because he was an offensive machine. He's number 2 in rookie points right now, and he's a defenseman on Boston. He wasn't one of their top defensemen.
Such a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I'm sure you love that. Seth Jones too, having a really good year, and it's tough to evaluate the defenseman based on stats because
defenseman you have to really see play.
Yeah,
I mean, the other night I watched Derek Morris on the Phoenix Coyotes, and the things he does, the average hockey fan doesn't see. Hits it all in positioning, first pass out of the zone, patience. Defensemen have to be patient.
good transition game.
Yeah, I mean, you just have to have all these subtleties that just never translate into a stat sheet.
Just being fundamentally sound, which describes Derek Morris, and I think probably describes Seth Jones too. I haven't seen him too much.
So Krug's he's a rookie. He's a +5.
And 14 points. Tied with Sean Monahan.
That's unbelievable.
He's on a very good team.
Sure he is.
But he's part of the reason that team's good. We saw that in the playoffs last year. He's a major reason they went to the Stanley Cup, which almost makes it feel like he's not a rookie.
Yeah.
But whatever. Those are the
things
rules.
that make you go, Thank you, Arsenio.
Yeah, thank you for quoting a song from 1990. Chris Kreider having a good year as well for the Rangers. This is a fun year for rookies. Brandon Peary's coming on for Chicago, 11 points, 19 games. Just there's a lot of good young players in this league. I'll tell you one guy to watch who's number 18 in scoring right now, but he's only played 10 games. Tyler Toffoli of LA. Played a little bit last year, was really good. 8 points in 10 games already this year. If he finishes out the rest of the year up at the NHL level, I tell you right now, he will be among the top 5 rookie goal scorers, maybe top 2. That's how good he is.
So why isn't he staying?
I think he will.
Okay.
But he just didn't start the year up there.
No.
So LA doesn't score a lot of goals, but when they do, it seems to be him. That's it for episode 25. Join us next week as we recap the Thanksgiving Showdown and update the insane playoff race out west.
We're also going to keep an eye on the improving Philadelphia Flyers and the slumping Tampa Bay Lightning. And before we say goodbye this week, I just want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving.
Yes, plenty of things to be thankful for. Plus, whatever else happens in the next 7 days. Thanks for listening to The Hockey Podcast.
Today's show is dedicated to Gannon Hubler. Rest in peace, G-Man. Always remember, never forget.